Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
So with Labour declaring it will protect the NHS against any potential sell-off after Brexit, and Boris Johnson photographed at a succession of hospitals, the health service looks like being at the forefront of this election. But is it an issue the Conservatives can win on? Our health and social care correspondent Victoria MacDonald is with me.
Yes, well, we have seen Boris Johnson at a lot of hospitals today. We even saw him wearing a white coat. Maybe he wants to be a doctor in his next life, and goodness knows there are enough vacancies. And therein lies one of the problems for the Conservatives. But the first and most important problem for them is that it's a winter election, and winter is always a difficult time for the NHS. This year predicted that it's going to be that there is a crisis looming. There are severe staff shortages. There are bed shortages. The Royal College of Emergency Medicine has said they need to open another 4,000 beds just to get through this winter. There are problems with drug shortages, you name it. Now, the Conservatives will say that they put in more money. They will also say that they've put in more money into the building programme, into the capital programme, although they're exaggerating slightly how much they're going to use for that. Labour is going to make hay with this. It's always easier for the Labour Party. They see the NHS as their own. And right out of the box, Jeremy Corbyn was there yesterday talking about the NHS, and again today, talking about the spectre of privatisation. Also talking about that Channel 4 dispatches in which it was claimed that there had been secret talks about drug pricing as part of a trade deal with America, which a lot of people are very concerned about should that happen. The fact is that the NHS always plays out very large in the polling. The public really care about the NHS. It's always high up there, although at the moment it's just below Brexit. What we can guarantee is that there will be politicians walking down those corridors, their sleeves rolled up, washing their hands, their ties tucked in, hoping to make the NHS, to claim that the NHS is safe in their hands.
Victoria, thank you. Well, a short time ago, I spoke to the Shadow Health Secretary, Jonathan Ashworth, Dr. Dan Poulter from the Conservatives, and Sarah Wollaston, also a doctor, from the Liberal Democrats now. And I began by asking Jonathan Ashworth whether Labour would spend more than the Conservatives, given the Tories' pledge to build 40 hospitals.
I believe that when you see the manifestos that a Labour government...
You don't know yet.
Well, we don't know what the Tory manifesto is, but...
Well, it's a simple thing. When we're on the doorstep, I say, who's going to spend more on the NHS, you or them?
I think the Labour Party will be spending more on the NHS and associated health services like public health, and of course the social care services as well, than the Tory Party.
Dan Poulter, he says it's 6 hospitals, not 40.
I think there's money there immediately for building 6 new hospitals, and there are plans in the pipeline for 40 in the future. But significantly, there is...
So it is only 6?
Well, it's 6 definitely happening right now, and the rest are planned for the future. And obviously, the detailed planning of that takes a little bit of time. There are those schemes that are shovel-ready, ready to go right here, right now. Going forwards, though, there is going to be money made available for the extra hospitals, the other 40 hospitals, to make sure it happens. And that's something obviously takes time to get the detailed planning consents in place.
Sarah Wollaston, are you a one-issue party going into this election?
Not at all.
It's just Brexit, or do you have a health
it's not.
policy?
We're going to have a really comprehensive package which is about health, it's going to be about well-being, keeping people well in the first place, and it's also going to be about social care and looking at that as a whole system. So we'll be making an announcement about our health policy shortly. Oh, I do know what it is, but I'm not going to be announcing it today. I think people will be really energised by it, but what I would also say, Brexit, you can't take Brexit out of this. There's no version of Brexit that's going to help the NHS, social care or prevention and well-being. And I think it's a real shame that both these political parties are not being honest about how much money it takes out of our ability to actually spend on services, the things that really matter. So we should stop Brexit for that reason.
I mean, isn't the real problem, Jonathan Ashworth, for Labour, that you're going to spend the first year of government messing around with the Constitution, messing around with Brexit and Scotland and another referendum there? You're not going to have time to get legislation on the health service through, are you?
Well, we'll bring forward more funding into the NHS because there's been a decade of cuts to health services in this country. We'll bring back a training bursary so we can recruit 20,000 extra nurses for our NHS. But on the issue of Brexit, Brexit is a disaster for the National Health Service. But we don't think it's fair or democratic just to say we'll cancel Brexit. We want to put that decision back to the British people. So the only party offering people a referendum in this election is the Labour Party, and if people out there want to remain within the European Union, they need to vote Labour to get that referendum.
Well, they won't know what they're going to get. And what's more, Labour are going to be introducing a massive top-down reorganisation of the NHS, which the NHS itself has said it doesn't want. Seriously, it's set out what its proposals are to reduce unnecessary constant tendering, but it's not what Labour has put in. But that's there in the NHS's own plans.
So are you going to end the privatisation? That's crucial, because Jeremy Corbyn today said anybody providing NHS services should be an NHS employee. Now that means the end of all contracting out. All privatisation of the health service would stop under Labour government. Is that now your policy?
Look, when you've got cleaning contracts in hospitals and you're going out to private sector organisations, because they're cutting corners, they're leaving sort of infectious waste flowing through children's wards. Or the problems we've had in hospital catering, because contracts have been outsourced and they've had to cut back.
What about medical services that are being done by private companies for NHS patients? Is that all going to end?
Well, we're going to end this privatisation.
The reason that happens is because the NHS doesn't have the capacity.
No.
So you'll increase waiting lists.
Now, the reason that happens is because of the Lansley Act, the Tory Health and Social Care Act, imposes competitive tendering on the NHS, which forces many contracts to go out to the private sector.
Your health service has got a load of private companies getting rich, dealing with health service patients, rather than health service employees doing it for much lower rates.
I'm an NHS doctor. I don't do private work. I have an ambition to do private work. I want to work for the NHS. All of us, I think, here believe the NHS can deliver very high quality care and often better care in a more integrated and joined up way for patients. And I think there's an acknowledgement across all parties that we need to look at this and back what the NHS is saying, which is to move move towards a new tendering arrangements and reform the current arrangements to more strongly encourage and support NHS organisations to be able to deliver care.
There's a trust issue here again, isn't there? Because while you and your party have been constantly saying the NHS isn't on the table when it comes to an American trade deal, we know, because Channel 4's dispatches revealed, that talks have been going on with American pharma companies and American trade representatives about American drug pricing, because they want it on the table, because they think that we're not paying enough and they want us to pay more.
Well, the fact of the matter is that the Prime Minister's ruled that out, the Health Secretary has ruled that out.
If you say the NHS isn't on the table, the voters are liable to not believe you.
Well, I approach this as a doctor as well as an MP, and it's something that I would not or cannot support. We have that reassurance on the record from the Prime Minister, and I think we have to accept that it's not on the table, the NHS.
What I'd like to see is all political parties committing to listen to what the NHS itself says it needs from legislative reform, and to work alongside the people who work in the NHS, who lead it, and say, look, let's look at what they have proposed.
Do you recognise this is going to be a problem on the doorstep? That any commitment you make is liable to be disbelieved at the moment, because people just don't believe politicians and what they say.
And I don't blame them. I mean, Boris Johnson said we were going to leave the European Union today. You'd die in a ditch over it. We're still in the European Union.
Just finally, I mean, obviously you want this to be about anything but Brexit, really, as an election. But I mean, ultimately, if Brexit is your number one priority, stopping Brexit, you've got to vote Liberal Democrat, haven't you? No. Because they're the only party promising to stop it.
If you want to help the NHS,
but I think
you're not going to help the NHS with Brexit.
I want to remain in the European Union, right? The great city I represent, Leicester, voted to remain. But I do think it's undemocratic to just say we'll cancel the vote of 17 million people. You've got to give people a referendum. Give people a referendum.
From your point of view, Dan Poulter, when people say to you, you say we'll get Brexit done. I mean, you won't, in fact, will you?
Well, the first priority is to get through the withdrawal agreement, which the other parties have prevented the Prime Minister from delivering. We then get Brexit done. We can then move on to talking about the NHS, investing in education, investing in our health service.
You can get Brexit, and you can't.
But that's what this election is about. That's why the Prime Minister has gone to the polls.
Because you cannot finish the talks.
But there was a people's vote in 2016. This country voted to leave. I voted Remain, but I respect that result. That was the people's verdict. We need to now deliver on that, get Brexit done,
and you are still repeating this nonsense mantra of get Brexit done.
Well,
it's not true, is it?
Well,
because the talks go on.
Well, the talk we have withdrawal agreements, we get that bit done and get through that, and then in terms of what the final relationship looks like with Europe, of course there will be ongoing talks. But if we elect a Conservative government, we will uphold the referendum result and we will leave the European Union.
Dan Poulter, Sarah Wollaston, Jonathan Ashworth, thank you very much indeed.
Well, let's come back here now. And as many of you will know all too well, working in the health service can be a demanding enough job at the best of times. But take into account the amount of racist abuse some people receive, and it must be frankly intolerable. Emily has conducted an investigation which has found a big jump in such abuse in 5 years in hospitals in England. The number of attacks, both physical and verbal, are startling, from nearly 600 in 2013 to nearly 1,500 in 2018. To save you doing a maths, that's a 145% increase in just 6 years.
They tell me I should go home.
They call me Little China Girl.
Keep that doctor away from me.
It's now so common, I don't even hear myself being described as a black.
These are not words of fiction, but shameful, racist comments made by patients to NHS staff. ITV News has found such abuse is increasing in the health service right across the board.
I mean, it just makes you question your own self-worth.
Dr. Shanbag is a senior surgeon who's worked in the NHS for more than 20 years. He says even today he still has to deal with prejudice.
And the patient says, can I have a white doctor do the operation? And I was devastated. I said, God, at this stage in my career, I have to answer that question. It made me reconsider my position in the NHS because I'm thinking, do I want to put up with this? And if I did not have a 12-year-old for whom I have to take care, I would have left the NHS long time back.
Our research proves Dr. Shanbag is one of hundreds of NHS workers, from nurses to doctors to consultants, who endure such abuse on an almost daily basis.
Racial abuse towards hospital staff sadly is nothing new, but it does appear to be getting worse. We've all heard about intoxicated patients hurling abuse at staff late at night in A&E, but the fact now that it appears to be much more widespread surely means something more needs to be done to address it.
Do you feel that it's getting worse?
Yes.
Nick Hume runs one of the largest NHS trusts in the country. He takes a zero-tolerance approach to racist incidents, but wants to go a step further.
Should we be refusing treatment for people that say specifically that they won't have treatment from somebody from an ethnic background? My view is, yes, we should.
Despite finding the research shocking, the Health Secretary stopped short of backing such a move.
We've got to make sure that people get the care that they need. It's up to the NHS to make sure that each of these cases is properly managed individually.
Why then, in this day and age, are some patients still racist? It's complex, of course, but Brexit is having an impact.
Of course, a lot of people voted for Brexit from very well-meaning motivations, but we do live in an era when it seems that there's a permission for political discourse to be carried out in quite a confrontational way.
There's no doubt racism still exists, and not just in the health service. Dr. Shanbag strongly believes until it is called out every time, it will, along with its damning effects, continue to pervade our society. Emily Morgan, News at 10.